Welcome to the Church Universal series, where we seek to tell the often untold story of the many apostolates in the Catholic Church which are making a positive difference in the world. On the solemnity of the Sacred Heart each year, EWTN takes part in the Global Rosary Relay for priests. During the most recent Rosary Relay, the joyful mysteries were prayed in County Mayo in Ireland, and then I led the sorrowful mysteries in Alabama, after which the glorious mysteries were then prayed in Nepomuchanów in Poland. The intent being to circle the globe with the praying of the Rosary for the sanctification of priests throughout this one 24-hour day. My guest today is Marion Mulhall, the founder of Worldpriest Global Apostolate, which organizes this wonderful annual event. Welcome, Marion.
Thank you so much, Father Joseph Mary. I really appreciate this time.
Well, let's talk about the inspiration and what initiated this Worldpriest organization.
The Worldpriest Global Apostolate is a personal response to a personal vocation that I received unexpectedly on the 15th of January 1994 at 20 to 5 in the evening, when I was being prayed over by the late Father Kevin Scallon. And I was at a retreat that I had no intentions of going to, but the Lord had another plan and he guided me to be there. So as I was being prayed with by Father Scallon, I clearly heard the words, promote the priesthood at any price. And to an advertising executive, a creative director, that just made perfect sense. So that was the seedbed of the call.
And the Lord really takes our talents and our background. I myself was an engineer before I came to work for EWTN, but he really takes those experiences and talents that we've developed, maybe in the secular world, as you did, and then to use them for the spread of the gospel in even greater ways.
And that's the whole joy. Like when I returned to the office from that weekend retreat, my staff, because I was running my own advertising company at that time, and they all said to me, they said, hey, what happened to you at the weekend? And I said, oh, nothing really. Everything, no, nothing special. And they said, oh, come on, no. It's written all over you that something special happened. So I said, I'll tell you. And I did. And I said, look, when I do make a change or change my path, I need to discern the call that I had just received. But I said, I promise you, I'll get you the best jobs in the best advertising companies. And I will take care of you, but I will be responding to this call.
Now, what were the first steps that you took then, once you had this inspiration? What was the first step that you went forward with this?
I suppose the first step was literally sharing with my people, my friends, my staff, what had happened. And we then, as I said, start to begin to, work on vocation awareness programs. Bishops started inviting us to work in their diocese in various places in the world. And that really had a great effect on how we stepped forward. And I suppose probably the biggest step was when I was invited to attend the International Institute of Ongoing Clergy Formation at Seton Hall University under the leadership of the then late Monsignor Andrew Cusack. So he invited me that same year of '94 to come to the Seton Hall to the program that summer. So I was there a couple of summers in a row. And that was wonderful because that gave me the opportunity to meet with many cardinals and bishops and priests, and made great friends, particularly with the late Father Benedict Rochelle. Father Benedict just couldn't do enough for us. He was so wonderful. And, again, from that meeting, I got, to know John Cardinal O'Connor very well. So John Cardinal O'Connor, always would give me an hour when I would come to New York to visit with him. So when I go to New York, I still give him an hour of prayer when I come to St. Patrick's Cathedral. So that friendship has continued with Cardinal Timothy Dolan as well, and Bishop Edmund Wayne.
Well, let's talk about the annual Global Rosary Relay for priests. When did that come along?
The annual Global Rosary Relay for priests really began 12 years ago, when I and my team, we were praying for what could we do. Like Worldpriest was serving Catholic priesthood in the best way that we could do, as I said, being faithful to that vocation. So we're saying, like, but how can we bring the lay people in? You know, we need more lay people to be involved. So I could never really understand as to why we didn't have a World Day of Prayer for the sanctification of priests. So I had been onto the Congregation for Clergy and, you know, different people just asking, why do we not have a World Day of Prayer for priests? So heavens above, as I said, in 2002, St. John Paul announced that going forward, every Feast of the Sacred Heart going forward was to be a World Day of Prayer for sanctification of priests.
Mm-hmm.
So we really picked up on that. And then in 2003, we developed it even further. And then, as I said, 12 years ago, I was awoken one morning at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I mean, this inspirations have only happened twice. It's not the norm, that's for sure.
Yes.
Not really, no, not at all. But I clearly heard, I was woken out of my sleep. I was jolted out of my sleep, and I heard 20 countries, 20 mysteries. And I said, hold on, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what time it is on your time zone, but it's 4 o'clock here. Can we kind of discuss this at another time? And I intuitively knew. I said, oh my gosh. Mother Joseph Mary said, no, this is Our Lady. She wants it. How could anybody else speak those words so gently and so beautifully? Only Our Lady. So I knew it was the Rosary that she wanted, because that was the 20 mysteries. And then 20 countries meant it was to go somewhere. Didn't quite know how. But about 3 days later, I was talking with my team again, and we came up with the idea of actually having a relay. So that within about a month, we had actually organized the first ever Global Rosary Relay for the sanctification of priests, which was always linking back into promoting the priesthood at any price. So that was a perfect follow through from that. And that again was the seedbed for that. And we kind of thought, like, okay, it'll be for a year and we'll do it and it'll be great. But everybody wanted it to stay.
That's wonderful, because you think about, you know, the Olympics, for example, the races, you have the baton is handed on. And
Yes.
so you wanted to do this in a spiritual way. That one group, as I mentioned at the beginning,
Yes.
we was in Ireland praying, and then it went to us in Alabama, and then to Poland and to other places beyond, so that you circle the whole globe with the Holy Rosary for a 24-hour period for priests.
Yes, no, it is. It is just quite extraordinary the growth of the entire relay, because I said yes, it starts in Siberia, and Siberia then they pray the joyful mysteries, and they pass on to Singapore and to China and to Brunei, and to each country passes on to another country, as Father correctly says, until the entire world is covered. But we were very blessed this year that we managed, with a lot of work, to have a participating prayer location in every single state in the United States. Now that is wonderful, because that gives us the opportunity for next year for each of those, like if you take the Diocese of Burlington and Vermont, they had every parish in their diocese praying by live stream from the cathedral in Burlington.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
So that replicated itself, like, literally all over the world. And in Canada, we had every parish in every province participated.
Wow.
So every province in Canada, every parish in every province in Canada, every state in the United States, all over Europe, New Zealand. Like, there's a beautiful little shrine of Otika down in southwest New Zealand, and they have been participating from the very beginning, and they were profoundly moved when we issued our newsletter report featuring their picture on the whole report. So Father Phil Cody was deeply moved when he read this, that like the married people who were the tiniest little group praying were able to make such an impact on the world of the Global Rosary Relay. But, you know, Father, like no matter what age one is or where they're living or what culture they are or what backgrounds or almost what faith, really, it's just a great opportunity for the world to be one community on Global Rosary Relay Day.
It is, and you think of the power of the Rosary, as Our Lady has revealed many times, for example, at Fatima, that it's by such means that we can bring peace to the world. And certainly this has to have a profound effect. Have you had any testimonies, for example, from priests saying how this has encouraged them in their own vocations, or maybe seminarians?
Basically what it is, the priests are just so, like right across the board, they are so incredibly thankful for what Worldpriest is embarking on doing. But I suppose one of the bigger great gifts that we had this year was when the president of our Irish Bishops' Episcopal Conference, Archbishop Eamon Martin, he issued a statement through the conference encouraging everybody to pray and to join him at the time that he was praying from the cathedral in Armagh. So like the priests right across from all the countries, they're very, very aware of the gift of what is happening on this day, but it's the lay people who run it. And it's the one day when some priests will say, well, this is the one day when we can kind of take a little bit of a rest and put our feet up and just rejoice in all the prayers that are being offered for us all over the world. So, you know, as time goes on, like, I mean, our resources are very limited. So we're doing the very best that we can with those available resources to us. And we just depend on Our Lady to do the rest. So the good that's coming forth from it, we may never know.
Right. Now, you mentioned Pope St. John Paul II. I always looked forward to his Holy Thursday letters to priests. He had a great love for priests. And how about Pope Benedict and Pope Francis? Have they been supportive of your work?
Well, I just come back to St. John Paul for one moment, because he was the Pope who gifted the world with the luminous mysteries of the Rosary. And we have picked up on that now as well, whereby every Thursday is Rosary Thursday. So today is a Thursday, so today is Rosary Thursday.
Yes.
So this is getting into the minds and the hearts of people that every Thursday is Rosary Thursday. And that's the day when we pray the luminous mysteries, which is beautiful. But we've taken that a step further now. And the last Thursday of each month is a virtual Rosary Thursday via Zoom. And we have a wonderful priest leader each month. Like this month, we're blessed in having Archbishop Michael Neary. He will be leading, and then we're currently working on the list for all of the year of 2022. So we have a beautiful priest to lead each month, and it's all through Zoom, and people from all over the world join and pray, and they love it. And that's getting bigger and bigger, because the whole world are praying again. You could have people online from Africa, from all over the United States, from literally everywhere on the last Thursday of each month. So then you correctly said about like with Pope Benedict as well. Pope Benedict, when we wrote to him, telling him about the success of the Global Rosary Relay, and just gently, very gently asked the question in terms of, you know, will there be maybe a possibility that he might consider writing a prayer that could be prayed as part of the Global Rosary Relay. So a very short time afterwards, the Holy Father sent a very beautiful prayer. And as far as I'm aware, it's the only prayer he ever wrote specifically for priests. And he wrote it for the Global Rosary Relay and for Worldpriest. So we were very, very thankful to the Holy Father for that, because it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And it's all on our website.
And that's something that we always conclude the Rosary with before we hand it on to the next country. it's like a baton, isn't it, that we're going to conclude with
Yes.
this prayer of Pope Benedict before the rosary goes to the next, the Vicar of Christ, as he was at that time.
That's so lovely when you put it like that, Father. It really is, because it's that's just the connecting link, and it is very, very beautiful. And then Pope Francis has very, very kindly gifted us with his very special blessing to the Worldpriest activities and mission and outreach, and particularly the Global Rosary Relay. But I did have the gift of meeting the Holy Father back 4 years ago. I hadn't expected it. It just so happened that year the Global Rosary Relay fell on the 3rd of June, which also happens to be the anniversary of the death of Venerable Patrick Peyton. So we were working in tandem with the Pontifical Council for the new evangelization for the Jubilee Year of Mercy. So we promoted the Jubilee Year of Mercy, and the congregation promoted the Global Rosary Relay. So because of that, we were in Rome for the 3rd of June on that year. And so it was the Friday which the Holy Father, Pope Francis, had celebrated the Mass to close the ceremonies, which was beautiful. So that was where I was invited to attend the Holy Mass. And it was after the Mass, I then had the gift of meeting with Pope Francis, which was the most incredible experience I've ever had. I was just totally lost in time forever, and I wanted to stay there. It didn't matter. It was okay.
Well, let's talk about some of the resources that you have available on your website. I visited there, and there's a lot of different spiritual resources that you have available on Worldpriest.
Yes, indeed, we do. As I said, we have, between our Worldpriest itself, between the annual Global Rosary Relay, the Rosary Thursday, we also have the Daily Priest Prayer Friend, where there's a special intention every day to pray for the priest of the intention that comes up on that particular day, for a priest who may find himself in that situation. It could be a priest who's moving to a new parish and he's finding it very, very painful. So we encourage people to pray for him. So I think that Daily Priest Prayer Friend is a really lovely gift for people to, quite simply, it's only a tiny little intention of that day that the Word would pray. And as I said, we have many resources then in terms of spiritual direction, which is very, very important. Not just, for priests, but for lay people as well.
Sure.
I think when we're on a spiritual journey, we need a guide. Like, you wouldn't go climbing Mount Everest without having the most experienced people going ahead of you or checking out things for you. You wouldn't attempt it alone. So why literally almost attempt the greatest journey of all, taking us into eternity, that we would have a soulmate and a spiritual director who would journey with us.
And how can they get to those resources? What is the website link?
It's www.worldpriest.com.
So very simple, worldpriest.com. Now, do you have a future vision of where you'd like to go? I'm sure the annual Global Rosary Relay is going to continue to grow as people learn about it and want to participate in it. But do you have a future vision of other things you'd like to see happen?
I think probably the biggest activity or mission of all of outreach is to literally extend and keep extending, Father, that Global Rosary Relay, because it's endless. As I said, somebody was saying to me this year, like, how many people participated? And I said, look, just put away your calculator. There is no calculator that can possibly calculate the amount of people who prayed. So that of itself is huge. So I'd love to see that growing into whereby every parish in every state, in every country, in every county, worldwide, would ultimately all be part of the the Global Rosary Relay, and the Rosary Thursday keeps that fire, keeps fanning that fire.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just 1 year to the next. It keeps fanning that fire. And there is a new item that we are introducing, or should I say reintroducing, and that is the Catholic identity card. That was a hugely popular card back a number of years ago. But like everything else, we got distracted with many other things coming on stream. But as I said, we are not for profit, and we do need to find ways to try and fund this whole apostolate that has gone so big. So one way we found was that by bringing back the Catholic identity card, that certainly would be a great help for that purpose.
Well, certainly these prayers are the heart of what you're doing, but I think also this annual event calls to mind for the faithful just how much we need our priests. And we priests too, we need priests, right? To hear our confessions, to be examples to us as well. So talk about that.
Well, again, as I said, getting back to my original vocation of promoting the priesthood at any price, I have learned over many years, like coming from a secular background, although being very interested always in the mystics and St. John of the Cross, and my close friend, to all who know me very well, is my friend St. Aloysius Gonzaga. So there's always been that very strong spiritual aspect in my life. But as I always say, that we can't live without our priests. It's just not possible.
Right.
Without priests, as you said, we just do not have the Eucharist. And if we have the Eucharist, we have no church. And we've seen like a lot of evidence through the pandemic, whereby with churches closed, that we've been deprived of that spiritual food.
Yes.
And that is hurting an awful lot of people in a very, like, I don't mean a serious way, but I mean, it's just, it's the tragedy of the pandemic.
Yes.
But equally, we have to respect our priests, and we have to take care of you, and we have to make sure that you're protected.
Yes.
So it's kind of a two-way thing. But I mean, as I said, without you priests, like we have nothing without you. I mean, you are other Christs. I mean, I love that word, the alter Christus, which is what the priest is. And I think the more priests who realize that and are totally being conformed each day into the person of Jesus Christ, I think it's just absolutely wonderful. And I can't say that enough.
Yes.
That's why we pray for the sanctification of priests, because we want our priests to be holy. We're not saying that you're not, but that, people would be aware of the fact that it's holy priests we need. Holy priests, holy people, I guess.
Exactly. So we follow our pastors and we follow their example. Pope St. John Paul II is my hero. And priests like you had association with, like Father Benedict Rochelle, and other priests that I've known here through EWTN have just been wonderful examples that have encouraged me about how to live out my own priesthood. So we need holy priests, and prayer is a great way for us to support them in growing in holiness. So any closing thoughts that you have about your ministry and the importance of prayer for priests?
Well, I would encourage everybody to pray for priests daily, like just as without even thinking, and because, as I said, we just need you all so much. I mean, our eternity will depend to a fair degree on the lives that we live, but being guided by our priests along the way. So we can never thank you enough for what you bring to us and what you give us. But I do ask people to spread the word about the Worldpriest Global Apostolate, and I do also ask people to please, join us on the Rosary Thursdays. They're beautiful, and the more and more people who pray, the bigger that gets. And be mindful of the annual Global Rosary Relay. And if any country is not representative, which there's not too many, I think, but they would let us know. We just want global infiltration, and
Yes.
Our Lady is well on her way with it. Like, we can't do that much. We can only do the little piece that we can, which is everything. There's no part of me that's held back. Everything. It's 1,000%.
And just quickly, how can people be part of this virtual Thursday Rosary that you have?
We issue, people can register via Zoom, and as I said, people who sign up to our newsletter will automatically get the invitation to participate. It's very easy to sign up to the newsletters. We won't infiltrate you with an awful lot of news. You'll only get invitations to the Rosary Thursdays and important information regarding the annual Global Rosary Relay for the sanctification of priests. We don't issue an awful lot of any other newsletters, so you're not going to be inundated with newsletters. So we hope in time, when we have more resources, i.e. behind us, that we would be able to launch various advertising campaigns in different countries, and particularly in the United States and in other parts of the world. But that's another day's work. We have to get from A to B first. But we really would love to be able to have the facilities to, we would also love to build a Rosary Relay app, but again, we have to wait for that time to come.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Marion, for being with us today and to tell this story, which is so important for the world today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Father.
We need priests, and we priests need priests too. And we want our priests to be holy, to show us a way to heaven by word and example, revealing the love of Christ to us. This is why Worldpriest is needed, and why we all need to pray for priests, to pray for our pastors, and to appreciate the gift that the priesthood is to us in our journey through life. Let us offer a prayer for one particular priest today. We will see you again this time next week for another episode of the Church Universal.